Clarity is knowing who you are and how you show up in a way that it's easy for people to recommend you. Clarity and or credibility is consistently showing that in your actions and how you're seen both on and offline.
Where we believe everyone deserves a stakeholder-centered leader. Welcome to Conversations with Coaches, where top executive coaches talk about the leadership tools that shape their practice and then give them to you for free. This is a stakeholder-centered coaching production where we believe everyone deserves a stakeholder-centered leader. I'm Brandon Murgard, CEO and Master Coach, and I'll be your host as we take you inside the coach's toolbox. The best part of this season is you get to keep the tools. We're giving each resource to our listeners for free as part of our mission to measurably improve leadership effectiveness around the world. You can download all the tools at mgscc.net/coach-toolbox. That's mgscc.net/coach-toolbox. And by the way, if you are a certified stakeholder centered coach, then you already have access to all these tools inside of your SCC Coach portal. So get your tool today. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Depending on where your seat is located, brace yourself, because in today's episode, you're going to embark on a journey of enlightenment with our guest. He's the human equivalent of Google when it comes to credibility and leadership. He's a veritable credibility king. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome credibility expert Mitchell Levy. He is a two-time TEDx speaker and international best-selling author of 60 books. His words have the power to inspire and transform. As an executive coach, he's been instrumental in shaping leaders, earning him a spot in Marshall Goldsmith's prestigious 100 Coaches community. His entrepreneurial ventures are as impressive, with 20 successful businesses to his name, including 4 publishing companies that have published over 750 books. His strategic insights have benefited hundreds of companies, and he's even chaired the board of a NASDAQ-listed company. Today, Mitchell will share his wisdom on showing up consistently with clarity. It's a tool designed to help you enhance your personal brand and credibility. This is going to be a great conversation, so get ready to level up your game, and please join me in welcoming Mitchell Levy. Mitchell, thank you for being here today.
Brandon, that's the most impressive bio reading. I want just that recording, and I'll use that to introduce me going forward. Thank you. Happy to be here. Honored.
Well, just fold me up and stick me in your pocket, Mitchell. I'll pop out and give a little intro anytime you are walking on stage. And I think we'd have fun with that. But I want to start out with gratitude. It's such a good way to kick things off. I'm, of course, grateful that you're here today. But for those of you who don't know, a few months ago, Mitchell helped me get some serious clarity on my CPOP, which I'm hoping that we'll get into some of today. It's a handful of words that very accurately describes the type of clients that are most attracted to working with me. And this has given me an immense amount of confidence to say yes faster as I'm able to identify the right people more quickly, but also to say no far more often than I had done previously. So I want to start off by just thanking you for sharing your wisdom with me in the past, and I'm looking forward to paying it forward with our audience today.
Oh, I'm honored. Thank you. Really, thank you. Actually, Brandon, I will jump off for a second. What's really fascinating, this thing called a CPOP, the words are customer point of possibilities. Think of this as the playground you play in. And what's fascinating is I'm playing you a compliment, by the way. It's just going to take 30 seconds to get there. When you actually articulate the playground you play in, everything happens easier. You know what to do. You know what not to do. You articulated that very well. I've actually done this now over 1,000 times. And what I do is I could actually feel the resonance, the words that represent that person's playground, typically less than 10 words. I've done this over 1,000 times and had 1,000 people feel good about it. Now, here's where the compliment comes in. Over 900 of those times, the person on the other end forgets it somewhere between 2 hours and 2 weeks. Because what happens is as they start sharing how good they feel, somebody in their network that they actually trust, know, and love, somebody in their network says, you know what, those are not the right words, let's change them. And the person themselves says, okay. What I'm honored is that you're in the 10%. You're in that group that's Mitchell, I got it. This is me. I know what to do. And so that's my longer way of saying thank you for being you.
Well, can I share what mine is? Am I going to jump ahead in our discussion?
Oh, sure. Would love that.
I remember sitting down with you and Aaron Wheeler in Nashville. Boy, what an experience with the bird that snuck indoors and kind of hung out with us while we were there talking for.
We had to do it. So this is interesting. So somewhere in the time we were talking, we had like 2 hours. Somewhere in the time we're talking, a bird appeared and landed on. It was like really close to your shoulder. And I'm like, man, that's a good omen. And then about 15 minutes later, the bird actually had a poop directly on my laptop. and now in some cultures, that's also a good omen, but I'm not sure I thought of it that way.
It was the C poop, not the C pop. Good. We are quickly barreling towards the lowest common denominator in the conversation. That's so funny. What I distinctly remember was going through the C pop course. And of course, I'm going through this and thinking it's one of those like, people talk about aha moments. This was like a duh moment. Like, why haven't you been doing this the whole time? I got through it and I drafted a couple of them. I sent them to you and we sat down. And when I was able to, for the first time, verbalize this to you, I felt like, yeah, that's me. That's me. What I'm doing, literally leaving my mouth. And I know whoever hears this, if they are interested in the playground I play in, they're going to come and play with me. And I don't need to sell anything to them. I don't need to have benefits of working with me, or here's what I do different. It's like, hey, here's my playground. Anyone's welcome to play, but you got to do like the tools, the toys that are here on my playground. And so I've been able to use this in my sales and marketing copy. I've been able to use this at networking events. The one you and I were at recently was so much easier to say. My CPOP is the leaders who are people who are most attracted to working with me are executives looking to be recognized and acknowledged as more effective leaders. That's it. And if you don't want to be recognized as a more effective leader, I'm probably not the person to work with. If you want to be recognized for something different, probably not. If you're not an executive, probably not. All of this just piles it into one. And so I know that the tool we'll get in today also builds on, dovetails with, and expands into the CPOP. So let's start off, Mitchell, with, can you give us a brief overview? What's the Mitchell Levy landscape that got you to where you are today?
I'm going to share what many people think this is credible. You did most of it in the write-up, but so I have been, we'll start with happily married, been happily married now for 33 years, have a 25-year-old son, and he's amazing. And so that's probably most important. Okay, what's next? Been in Silicon Valley for 33 years. As you mentioned, started 20-ish companies. The 4 publishing companies we've published over 750 books. So that's been a fun role. Sitting on the board of an NASDAQ firm was absolutely amazing. Did that for 9 years. What I often do is we'll start with my undergraduate. My undergraduate degree was in stochastic and deterministic models of operational research. So the short way, or with that, by the way, as long as I could say those syllables, I'm still doing okay. It's when I fumble those syllables, I'm like, oh, wait, Mitchell. I was taught how to model people and systems and improve them. And I've always, in everything I've done. So, 2005, I'm like, let's start a publishing company. Back in 1999, I created the first ever, it was called the e-commerce management program for San Jose State. It was the first program talking about how the internet was going to be used inside of businesses. And we had people from around the world fly into Silicon Valley to actually learn how to do this. And that was the program that I created. So I've always found ways to see what's going on, to see what's happening and fix them. And what ended up happening was 4 years ago, I started on a Napoleon Hill journey. I interviewed 500 thought leaders on credibility. And I ended up about 95% of the way through, I had that massive aha moment. And what was interesting is I just thought, so the aha moment was, I figured out the core tenets of what is credible. Credibility is the quality in which we're trusted, known, and liked. And when I say known, it's not that I know of you, it's that I know you, right? And now there are 10 values associated with trusted, known, and liked. And I thought, once I have these 10 values, this is so amazing. If we just acted credible, we'd be more humane. So in 2021, I did a TEDx, which was the 28th most popular. And it's called "We Are Losing Our Humanity." And I'm tired of watching it happen. Now, Brandon, what happened is I spent the next 3 years deploying, I still had my publishing companies. I'm still doing executive coaching, although prior to being enrolled in the 100 coaches, being part of Marshall's program, I actually didn't call myself that because I sat on the board of a public firm. I ran 4 CEO networking groups for a decade. So I did the work, but just didn't call myself that. And then for 3 years, I've been focused on credibility. And by the way, I'm going to say this publicly now. My wife was right? Okay, so I'm saying this publicly. So she said at the beginning, she said, "Honey, people already think they're credible." And it turns out, regardless of, we're not talking politics, but whether or not you're on one side or the other side, everyone thinks they're credible. Whether or not in Europe, or if you're for Brexit, against Brexit, obviously you're credible, right? So what's interesting is when I would talk about credibility, the first thing I would do is say, "So what playground do you play?" And the way I would do it is, "What's your CPOP?" And that's what I've now started over the last couple of months. I've started focus very heavily on clarity. Clarity needs to come first. Credibility just comes out of clarity. And that's what the gift is focused on. Really, how do we show up in a way that it's clear in who we are, and other people want to recommend us because they realize we're clear on who we are.
Yeah, this is great. And Mitchell, I think we could spend at least 2 episodes just talking about your background. But to fast forward that short circuit a little bit for our listeners, you have such a cool background. And every time we talk, actually, I'll share another little side quest. I realized of all of the guests that we've had over the last 2 seasons, I think you and I, with the exception of Frank Wagner, maybe Kimberly Gonzalez, I think you and I have gotten to spend the most time together face to face in Tennessee and in California and so forth. And I'm always learning something new about your background as we talk. But so I want to jump to the today with your CPOP. Can you tell us what your CPOP is?
Oh, so for me personally, now, by the way, this thing called your CPOP, if that's a playground you play in, it's okay that it changes over time, right? I have an overarching CPOP, and it's 4 words: CEOs flying like eagles. And when I explain that in the executive coaching I'm doing, for me, it's typically companies between 5 and 100 million where the CEO's doing a great job and they know what it is. They don't have quiet quitting. Everything's going well. And they're actually participating in a time of peace. And they know that war's around the corner. They're either going to be affected by the next recession or the next COVID, or there's an acquisition happening. So that's really, when I think about it from an executive coaching perspective, that is the CPOP I use. There's another one that I'm starting to adopt that I really love. And the way on the advanced CPOPing is you end up having a transition CPOP, you have a foundation CPOP, and you have a working CPOP. But sorry, separate side. The transition CPOP I'm moving towards are coaches that have created a job, not a business. And that one hits like, oh, is that me? Yeah, raise my hand. Yep, right. And if you think about that CPOP, a lot of times you have these coaches today, really high caliber humans, and at some point in time they were the big cheese, whatever their playground was in, right? And then they're like, okay, I'm now, it's time for me to move to something else. I really have helped my organization a lot. I'm going to be a coach. Let's go to stakeholder centered coaching. Let's learn this methodology. By the way, phenomenal. I'm a SEC certified. Phenomenal methodology. Right? So let's learn this methodology. And all of a sudden it's going to be like it was. And they're like, oh, wait, well, I don't have any of the things that we used to have. So let me point out three things that are often part of a company that you as soon as I say them, you go, yeah, that's good. And when you start your own thing, you don't have anymore. One is the water cooler. There is something that's powerful about going to a location where you meet other people, and whether or not you would meet them normally or not, probably not, you end up making friendships that you wouldn't have made otherwise. So the water cooler, meeting other people, is very cool. The second is, as much as it's fun to be an entrepreneur, there's something also nice about having a track you get on. That track is, here's your job description, here's how you're successful, here are the tools we've already tested and works for you. When you start your own company, there's such a plethora of things that can happen, right? And then the third is having accountability and mentorship, right? So within a company, you're getting all those. And when you then start working for yourself, you're like, well, what do I do? And then there's all these people with these marketing cookie cutter approaches. And they say, hey, you do this and this will work, and you do that. And then it's very confusing. And so what often happens is as I've been meeting more and more coaches that are out there in the world. Now, it could be coaches, could be consultants, but somebody who's really responsible for rainmaking, lead generation. People call it prospecting, but it's not. It's really engaging with potential future referral partners and customers, and closing, right? Being able to actually enroll people in all of those, and then delivery, right? And so a lot of people, like at the company, I just did delivery. I didn't have to worry about this other stuff, right? And so this is stuff that's not taught. I got an MBA as well. This is stuff that's not taught in B school. And even if it was, it'd be outdated today because life keeps changing. And so for me, the fundamentally, and now I'm going to circle back, it goes back to your purpose. It goes back to the playground you play in. It goes back to if you can clearly articulate, and Brendan, I'm going to share, I do have a CPOP course, which anyone can take. You do need to get into Credibility Nation. You get a 1 month free to get there, but always ask me. Happy to have you take it. But I'm going to give you everything you need to make it happen for yourself. Okay. I'm going to say it is amazingly simple. And I'm also going to say, by the fact that I've done this 1,000 times and 900 people forgot it, it's amazingly hard to own, right? So here's the simplicity. It's called Customer Point of Possibilities because if you are a credible human, you are a servant leader. Now, whether you call it servant leader or you're of service to others, if you're a credible human, you are of service to others. So, who? Right? Now, a lot of times people say, well, I work for this group and this group and this group, and I do this and do that. And we're taught to give the McDonald's menu worth of option items because at least one of them is going to appeal to my audience, and someone's going to say, oh, I love you, I need that. That's not how it works. Specificity and focus is really powerful, right? So who is it that actually plays in your playground? And the second piece of it is, from their perspective, what is the pain point that they want to get over, or what is the pleasure point they want to reach? And if you could put that together in less than 10 words and try to make sure you get rid of any of the marketing cookie cutter stuff. Your CPOP is not your tagline. Your CPOP is not going to sell you. Your CPOP is going to do nothing more than to give you an opportunity to say, hey, there's a playground I play in. This is it. And for somebody who's interested, by the way, the person who's interested, the way I think about it when I'm talking to somebody else, they could be either a referral partner, they could be someone who could be a client going down the road, or they could be somebody who doesn't care. If they don't care, it doesn't mean they don't care about me. They just don't care about the playground I play in from a working perspective. So I speak to somebody as they're a potential referral partner. And if I said something like coaches who've created a job and not a business, if you are a referral partner, yeah, what do you mean? I'm feeling that myself. And then when I respond to that, I'm not going to do that at the moment, but when I respond to that, you've already entered my playground. from a credibility perspective, the things that I say are being bounded by the playground we play in. For you, when you share your CPOP and somebody says, tell me more, they're already giving you the respect of understanding the narrow focus of the playground you play in. And then you say, how do I work? And then you say, well, I've got this methodology that I work in. It's called Stakeholder Centered Coaches. It's from Marshall Goldsmith, the #1 CEO coach of the world. And it does these 3 things that will provide value to the leader to be more successful at who they are and what they do, right? You say those words once. If you said that out of the blue, it doesn't have context. If you say it within the playground and they understand it, all of a sudden you have that you're giving them the compass in which to evaluate what you say next.
You know, this has solved all the problems that you've mentioned. And as a coach, it's solved a whole separate set of I think, almost universal problems, which is when someone says, what do you do? And I think many coaches kind of think, yeah, I'm a coach. Yeah, now I need to explain this in a way that this person who maybe has no idea what I do can understand. The problem that comes up with that is I spend a lot of time justifying what I'm doing, and they spend a lot of time filling in the blanks with assumptions. So when I say I'm a coach, so you guys work with motivation, or you do big cheerleading conferences, and so no, here's what I do. It's like, okay, well, now I'm course correcting. Instead, when I say I work with executives who want to be recognized and acknowledged as more effective leaders, they know exactly what I do. They don't pour their assumptions on me. And I have a very clear pathway, as you said, to establish my credibility on the backside of that playground. It's just, even as you said, coaches who have designed a job for themselves. Say that line one more time.
Oh, it's close enough. But coaches who've created a job, not a business.
You know, I'm the CEO of the world's largest executive coaching network. As soon as you say that, I feel vulnerable. I feel seen.
By the way, me too. I mean, I'm a client of my own, of this job. I mean, I have to be, right? Otherwise, how can I be good at it, right? So.
Totally. And even in that vulnerability, I don't feel scared. I don't feel threatened. But what I do feel is Mitchell sees me, and Mitchell very well may have what I need to not be described that way. And it's not threatening. It's just, wow, okay, so Mitchell, what's the first reaction? Tell me more. Tell me more. And I've invited you to tell me more. And if you're a coach and you can get a leader to say, hey, that's really cool, tell me more about that, boy, 50% of your job is done right there. So this is really powerful for those of you who are listening, who are coaches, consultants. I mean, if you're teachers, trainers, facilitators, anything that people might make some assumptions or already have that about what your profession is, the CPOP is important. So let me transition this now, Mitchell, to how you can how people show up consistently with clarity. Tell me a little bit about this, and tell me about the tool we're looking at today.
So the tool we're looking at is the end result of thousands of hours of work and research compiled into one infographic, right? And when I finished the Napoleon Hill study, so this was started 4 years ago, so finished it 3 years ago-ish, and I decided it was time to deploy credibility. One of the ways that we started deploying it is called the Ultimate Credibility Bootcamp. It is a 15.5-hour event over 2.5 days. And it covered how to show up. I often use the word asynchronous and synchronous, since people go, Mitchell, what does that mean? So how do you show up when you're in person? How do you show up when you're online? Right? So your social media, your website. And what happens is we've been taught that, well, I have a presence on LinkedIn, and that's going to look different than my presence on Facebook, because Facebook people want to see it in a different way. That's going to look different. Oh, I got a TikTok thing. I'm going to do differently there. And the thing that's really fascinating is there really is you. I mean, you may do multiple things in life, but the playground you play in should be consistently seen across your, I'm going to say asynchronous presence, but across your social media, across your website. If for me, and I'm a big referral partner to people I work with, if I'm going to refer you, you have to show up well. Because if you don't show up well, and I'm sharing with people how they should show up, I can't refer you, even if you are a good human, right? You ever do this? Like you say, hey, you got to use this person. They're great. Just don't look at their website. It stinks. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't work, right? So the cheat sheet is, in essence, over a 2-year period, we were giving the Ultimate Credibility Bootcamp quarterly. It's this 16-hour event, some amazing video testimonials, because it's so transformative. And it represents a summary of those 16 hours. There are basically 6 segments. It's going to ask you questions, and it's going to give you recommended prescriptions. And so it's one of those things you can look at a glance and go, oh yeah, this is simple, got it. You could spend a lot of time just asking yourself those questions. And to answer yours coming back, clarity is knowing who you are and how you show up in a way that it's easy for people to recommend you. Clarity and or credibility is consistently showing that in your actions and how you're seen both on and offline. Ooh, that's a good definition. I need that again.
Yeah. So the boot camp is actually taking you through the process of implementing this. So this is almost the agenda. It's similar to the agenda for the boot camp, correct?
Oh, that actually is the agenda for the boot camp. And I forgot to mention, one of the problems when you're helping transform somebody and you're doing it over 2.5 days, if it's continuous transformation, like almost every moment of the day, it's sort of like excavating their brain, and like it's painful. And they're not going to remember everything. So one of the things we've done recently is I've taken the Ultimate Credibility Bootcamp and broke that into 6. By the way, if you look, there's 6 modules there. You can get a hint of where they came from. There are 6 4-hour credibility boosters. And I did a test drive of the first one. And the people in the room gave as the same glowing referrals and recommendations and testimonials from this 4-hour session, which didn't excavate their brain cells, as the boot camp in the past. So it's a really interesting, as a coach, when you're supporting somebody else, if you can make a transformational moment and they get it and they know how to deploy it, it's even if you're only partway through your conversation with them, don't make another one. Just let that stick, figure out how to reinforce it, and call the session short if you need to. That's kind of my lesson that I learned. Yeah.
As our conversation unfolds, you may be wondering, what is this whole stakeholder-centered coaching thing? It's a leadership development process that guarantees leaders become both recognized and acknowledged as more effective leaders by key stakeholders in 12 months or less. Nearly 5,000 coaches have been trained in this methodology. The coaching program is designed to build functional expertise from 3 stages: intellectual, practical, and applicable on the job. In addition to graduating with the most rigorous, research-driven coaching methodology on the market, you'll also walk away with measurable coaching results and a lifetime certification to show for it. We don't just believe in what we do. We stand behind it. And that's why we are giving away complimentary access to the first stage of the training to anyone listening to this podcast. Get your very own access code today by visiting mgscc.net/sample-course. Let's tune back into the interview. Well, I want to share for those of you who are just listening in. You know, if you're here watching today, you'll be able to see this. But for those listening in, what we're looking at is a 1-page document with some steps going in through a credibility door with CPOP as our rails. And then you go up the stairs, starting with researching you, social mediaing you, endorsing you, watching you, and being you. And all of that contributes towards credibility. And some of the questions here, like Mitchell said, on the surface, it's very easy to disregard them. And I skimmed this, Mitchell, full disclosure, in my first pass, despite being familiar with this and despite knowing that the simple with all of this credibility information, simple actually means it's going to be a whole lot deeper than I anticipated. I went back to go through some of these in preparation for our call. The first one is, when you Google your name from an incognito window, what do you see and is it credible? So I pulled it up, and guess what? I know what I saw, and it was a lot of different things. It's not what I wanted. It's stuff from my musician days. It's mountain biking videos. It's fitness things. It's what I'm doing here. It's what I've done in the past. Anyway, I stumbled already on the first step. And so then I turned to the tactics section, and it walks you through what to do to rectify that. And this is all DIY. Of course, there's the boot camp that will actually get you through, hold your hand all the way through it. But ladies and gentlemen, if you pick this up, I definitely encourage you to go through the steps one by one, because this is good. This is important stuff for coaches, and it's going to make your job easier, describing what you do and attracting the right people to your playground. So Mitchell, I would love to know some case studies on this, because I have obviously I'm a big fan, no question. But I know that you've worked with thousands of people on this. What other types of results have you seen with people who go through this process?
It's across the board. And we'll talk generically, and then I'm going to share the Aaron Wheeler story. What ends up happening when people actually have their CPOP, now this is the 10% that keep it versus the 90% that sort of end up forgetting it, is they end up getting significantly more focused on what's relevant. That 10%, almost immediately, they're sending me their updated website by the end of the week. Almost immediately, Mitchell, I put my CPOP in the tagline on LinkedIn. What do you think? Right? And like this proud joy. And it's not that, I'm excited. I get excited with them, but they don't need to do it for me. They're doing it for themselves. I'm just acknowledging that, yep, this looks really good, right? And what was interesting, what I would say theoretically, right? So let's talk about theoretical. Theoretically, I'd say this is your playground. This is you. This is in less than 10 words. Yours is leaders being recognized as measurably more effective. Think about this. Leaders being recognized as measurably more effective. Like the person who's listening to that, if they buy into your playground, the first thing they're going to say, what's the measurement? You got them, right? You just talk about what you do with SEC and how do you measure it and what happens. And they're like, I got it. I want that. Done, right? So what I would say is this is the playground you play in. This is really you. It's the essence of who you are. Now, Aaron Wheeler, and you've interviewed Aaron in the first season. Aaron is someone I've been working with, and I shared with Aaron I heard his CPOP and shared it with him, and it's fantastic as well. And what may or may not have come up with the interview is Aaron played college football. And in playing college football, he ended up with some brain injuries. And also during COVID, he ended up with some heart stuff, which caused the brain things to happen. And actually, I think he admitted to me, and hopefully he's not mad about this, I think he had brain fog when he was talking to you. So he had all these sticky notes on his computer, right? And what he said to me was, and this isn't a video testimonial, so I'm comfortable sharing, is he goes, Mitchell, I could only remember 25% of what people were saying. And so I had to write down the notes and then take a look at it and see how to respond. And the thing that helped me was having my CPOP and having the written words that tell me more. Because for Aaron, he actually forgot who he was because of the brain fog. And he used the CPOP and the tell me more to remind him who he was. It's sort of like remember the Matrix where you get a thing plugged in the back of your neck and you say, okay, I want to learn karate. He was just reminding himself who he was. And so he's now the quintessential CPOP example, because if you forget who you are and you're a coach and your brain and how you speak is really who you are, and you forget that for whatever reason, being able to be reminded that on a consistent level is powerful. And he used that. And even during that period, he used his CPOP to close the biggest deal we ever closed. And it was just because he reminded himself where he was. I am the most proud of that.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a fantastic story. It was episode 9, season 1. For those of you who have not seen it, I definitely recommend checking it out. And when he shared that with me, Mitchell, what I thought was fascinating was I remember walking out of that interview thinking, this is a really articulate person. He's very thoughtful in his word choice. He's being very methodical in his responses. And then he came back and said, actually, I was like, really just hanging on. And I thought, man, not only is that a great showing of character to show up and still give your best, right? But to be able to pull yourself back by saying, look, if I know who I am and I just tell the truth about that consistently, everything's going to fall into place. And it did. He came off very, very credible. And I think we all have you to thank for that. So kudos.
Thank you. I think that's Aaron and not me, but I'm really glad. And that's the essence of your question. If every day you wake up and you know the playground you play in, and that's the place you play. And by the way, the other stuff you do that you found, there's nothing bad about having a personal life. That's great. And then just what your job is to put that in context of how you serve the audience you serve.
Yeah, it's a beautiful tool to just have. I mean, I would say the real value only comes when you've got it locked and loaded, when it's just a bullet in the chamber, you're ready to go anytime, pull it out and stay ready. But, as you're going through this, Mitchell, I'm realizing I might not have been in the top 10%, as you mentioned, because I'm still holding on to my, 4th or 5th draft of executives being recognized and acknowledged as more effective. And I modified that to executives wanting to be measurably more effective leaders. And it's already my bad here. But I want to encourage all of you who are stakeholder-centered coaches, use that if you like, modify it if you like. I don't have any proprietary rights to it. And hey, if it helps you, use it. But I know, Mitchell, you've got at least one other stakeholder-centered coach's CPOP. Anything you're willing to share that maybe other coaches can glean from?
Oh, right. Well, let me look, because I have some notes. I'm looking at my notes. So it was funny. I sat down with Aaron really, and we just wrote down some different potential CPOPs. And so, I like the one that was leaders being recognized as measurably more effective. That's an interesting one. Coaches bringing stakeholder-centered coaching to their clients. That only works if people know of Marshall Goldsmith. Right? In that case, because if you have to explain it, if somebody says, what stakeholder-centered coaching, if that's what you want and you're good at it, perfect. Another one that's interesting is leaders wanting to better serve their teams. So what I would say is, think about, for you, if you're listening to this and this is still intriguing to you and you're still here, first, who is that audience? Is it is it emerging leaders? Is it leaders? Is it Fortune 500 leaders? Is it like narrow that down? And then many cases, it's really the pain point that is more attractive than the pleasure point. When you're doing it for an organization, lots of times it's the pleasure point, because if you're representing, in this case, you're representing all of the coaches, and yours is both a pleasure and pain point at the same time, right? Which is I love that as well. And I just want to think about you look into your tool shed of how you deploy these tools, and you find fundamentally, if you think about where 80% of your revenue comes from, fundamentally, what is the primary problem that was recognized by the client that came to you? What is that fundamental problem? And then that gets merged into, that's part of your CPOP.
Yeah, as I went through my CPOP and the recommendations you just provided was exactly what was in the CPOP course. A big aha moment for me was how ineffective it is to say, oh, my target market is leaders. My target market is executives. because then you have all your work still ahead of you. Each time you meet someone, each time you have a piece of marketing collateral, each time you have a sales conversation. But with this, leaders being recognized as measurably more effective, for me, that term measurably can only mean involving stakeholders. So I know immediately that when someone says, tell me more, and I say, we do this stakeholder centered coaching, Marshall Goldsmith, number one, we involve stakeholders, we measure results. If they don't want to do one of those things, that's fine. That's target, that's the third profile of someone who hears this. They might not care, and that's okay. If they're the number two, they'll say, oh, okay, well, how do you do that? And we go more. And if they're a referral partner, or if there's someone who may be a potential referral partner, then they understand the impact of this. And one other iteration of the CPOP that we looked at was leaders establishing stakeholder-centered habits. Stakeholder-centered habits, because that is the outcome of stakeholder-centered coaching, is a leader has stakeholder-centered habits. And then also something with stakeholder-centered leaders, executives who want to become stakeholder-centered leaders. But the key takeaway is it tells people in 10 words or less whether they should be on your playground or not. And it works wonderfully with clarity. So coming back to the showing up consistently with clarity worksheet here, Mitchell, does someone have to have their CPOP before going on this credibility journey?
I'm thinking about that. For those, if you're watching me, you're seeing my eyes go to the ceiling. And if you're listening, you're like, there's this silence here. And, you can, I'm going to say mostly yes. I want to say 100% yes, but there are people who just know who they are and they're comfortable and they're feeling like they have it. They may not be able to express it in 10 words or less. I would say there it's important. For most people who, once again, I'm thinking about if at some point in time you were a big cheese at a company, you've now become this external coach, executive coach, and you don't know where your clients are. You don't know the playground you're playing and you're struggling. If you can really fine tune that playground, if you could really fine tune, so look at where 80% of the revenue either came from or is going to come, and fine tune it, because it's so much easier for somebody. Like, you may have friends who really adore you, but they're not going to recommend you if, like, they know you're going to do well, but the more clear you are, the more clarity you have on who you serve, the easier it is for them to think about who to recommend. And so if you actually have your CPOP, going through the free gift will make it easier for you to determine that this is both good and bad, right? So people come in the room, the Ultimate Credibility Boot Camp, like, oh man, I'm sorry, I'm great. I'm sure you are. Now, I've looked at who they are ahead of time, because that's part of me being credible, is I do research ahead of time, and I know there's some opportunities for improvement. And then once they get their CPOP, and then we let them sit in the playground of their CPOP, and we go, okay, now what do you think this LinkedIn profile says? Does it sound like your CPOP? And they're like, yeah, not really, right? And it's a combination of do it yourself and do it with you. It's really hard. By the way, the benefit of stakeholder-centered coaching is the leader is taking advantage of the fact that they have people who care about them being successful. Well, the same thing is true about you personally. There are people in your world who care about you being successful. Make it easy for them. Just like with stakeholder-centered coaching, and you're working with a leader, you're telling them what's the issue or opportunity they want to fix. In this case, what you want to do is say, hey, this is the world I play in. Could you make sure I stay in that world? Tell me when I'm going outside of my CPOP. Tell me, this is my CPOP. What does my website look like in relation to that? And have somebody else give you the truth. And it's very enlightening.
Yeah, it's almost rolling right into stakeholder-centered coaching to say, I would like to be seen as someone who helps leaders being recognized as measurably more effective. What can I do in the next 30 days to demonstrate this? What can I do on my website to demonstrate this? What can I do in my marketing copy? What can I do in my behavior? What can I do in our relationship? So, Mitchell, let me ask, I know that you've done a tremendous amount of research in the world of credibility. I see clarity as the next big frontier for you. When you look at these two qualities or characteristics, does one necessarily come before the other? Are they worked on in tandem? What's your thoughts?
My answer to this would have been different 6 months ago than it is today. Because after doing the 500 interviews on credibility, I found the answer was credibility. And now that I've had the 3 years of experience of knocking my head against the wall with credibility, what would happen, by the way, is when I would talk about credibility, the first thing I would do is focus on clarity. Because I can't tell, the great example of having published 750 books, somebody would give me a manuscript and say, what do you think of this book? Is it going to do well? And my first question is, what's the purpose? What do you want to use the book for? Do you want it for book sales? Do you want it for service sales? Do you want it for product sales? What's the purpose of it? And without knowing the purpose, I can't tell you if a book's going to do well, right? So now that I've really stepped back, I'm like, this was the duh moment for me is, clarity comes first. And it's by the way, this comes before. If we think about the CPOP, it is who, what. Who are you going to serve? What do they recognize as their either pain point or pleasure point? Who, what comes before why? Who, what comes before vision statement, mission statement, value statement, unique USP, unique selling. By the way, unique selling, like you don't sell anything, you enroll people, but the who, what comes, the CPOP comes before that. Because how do you evaluate all those things unless you know as a credible human? If you don't have clarity to know as a credible human, if you don't have clarity to know as a credible company, who you serve and what is it that they want to either overcome as a pain point or reach as a pleasure point, how can you, nothing else fits into place. So clarity actually really is the coming first. And this, like I said, this answer is different now, which is 3 months into me focusing really 100% on, I still focus on credibility, but now clarity is, let me see the playground you play in, and now everything else fits into place. And it's so obvious now, but it wasn't, for 3 years.
Are there groups of individuals who maybe have credibility but not clarity, or clarity but not credibility, or neither, or naturally have both?
With academics, they actually feel like they already have clarity, particularly if you've got a PhD and you focused on a doctorate and you focus on a particular, you've got clarity on who you are and what you do. What they feel they want is they want credibility. So it's just interesting looking at those two different groups.
Mitchell, if I'm listening to this today, I am abundantly clear on the value of credibility and the necessity of clarity, but how do I even know if I have credibility today?
Wow, well said. Borrowing from stakeholder centered coaching and doing a 360, why don't you do a DIY, do it yourself 360, ask 5 of the people in your network, who am I? And can you explain it in less than a sentence or 2? And see if you get 1 consistent result or if you get 5 different results. If you get 5 different results, you don't have clarity. Right? On the credibility side, it's really hard when you do self-assessments because people always feel that they have credibility. They feel like they have accountability, right? And so the quality of being credible is simply that you are trusted. So do you have people in your network who trust you? That you're known? Do you have people in your network that really knows you? Not the thing that you show externally, but that really know you. And are you liked? And you're not liked just because you're a boss and you're paying them money. You're liked because you are showing respect consistently and you are spreading their ideas. You're a boss and you take your employees' stuff, you are not credible. right? Spreading cred dust is sharing other people's ideas, thoughts, and actions. So that's an assessment you can make yourself. You can do a 360 on credibility as well. But I think if you do the clarity first, and then once you have clarity, then when you have your CPOP, you can go to your buddies and say, okay, what do you think? How do I show up when I'm in person? Do I show up like this is something I do? How would you fix that, right? And it's there's this self-assessment, and of course you could use the tools we have as well. But I want to make sure that you can do this yourself. This is very easy. It's ask the top 5 people who you are. And then you can ask the next question. Okay, how would I show up better or differently? And listen. Don't put the listening ears on. You got 2 of these guys. Put your listening ears on. Don't talk. Don't respond. Just listen.
Something I've loved in our relationship, Mitchell, is just seeing how steep your learning curve is in terms of what you put yourself through, how much you have taken on, shaped your own thinking style, and adapted that to new information. So since even I've known you, you have consistently grown your knowledge on credibility, and you've become more clear on it. What are you doing today to help other people go through that same journey more quickly?
First, I want to say thank you, and I'm honored. One of the things that now is in its second iteration is a 1-hour asynchronous course, the CPOP course, and you actually went through that. And I'm happy to have it. It's part of the Credibility Nation community. And going through the course, if you really sit back, and you're one of those people, you got to sit back and absorb. You really sit back and absorb. It's just chock full of aha moments that, if you let it, will help you understand the simplicity of how to show up in the world in a very clear, consistent way that gives you that clarity that you can then build your credibility platform around. So take the course as one. We do something called Credibility Boosters. I mentioned that earlier. It's these 4-hour feel free to come to any of those. We do charge for those. So come to those. And right now, I'm working with, hopefully I get you involved as well, but working with Aaron really to create a stakeholder-centered, focused credibility booster to go after, to attract an audience of leaders who are going to find it interesting and get excited about wanting to have a stakeholder-centered coach help them in their journey. So we're creating credibility boosters. So these are these 4-hour, and the way I'm doing it is I'm, for those people who end up becoming clarity specialists, so that's the third thing I'm doing, is I'm creating if you look at my LinkedIn profile, it now says CSS at the end of it. CCS, Certified Clarity Specialist. And so I'm enrolling people into a Certified Clarity Specialist program. And that one is very cool. Just allowing people to have clarity is one thing, and to be able to share clarity with others is one thing. What I felt was necessary is to also give them a business in a box. So to bundle in lead generation and a tool set and a storytelling way to enroll your clients. So it's the stuff that companies will often give you. So I'm working on that at the moment, and are running a group of people through it. And I'd love to, if this is something that's of interest to you, part of what you do when signing up for or downloading the gift is you could say, put me on the waiting list. No obligations. No, and what we'll do is keep giving you more information as we know more, and then talk to other people who are going through it and see how it works for them. My goal, Brandon, is what I realize is simple is not easy. So I'm providing the simple button. And I want to make it simple for you to be a stakeholder-centered coach. I want to make it simple for you to be anyone, to be mostly business coaches. I don't know what to do with sports coaches or other people, or health, diet coaches. But with business coaches, I want to make it simple that you can provide value. You can actually, this is my favorite term that you asked about earlier, to actually have client-funded acquisition. So to provide an opportunity where your clients are actually paying you to get to know you, to decide if they actually want to buy more of you, right? And so I'm bundling that into the program. And right now it's one super huge experiment. I'm hoping our experiments become super huge successful, and those that are involved are going to help. And if this is at all of interest to you, I'd be happy to, at the moment, I'd be happy to have the conversation because we're still building all the tools and approaches to make it successful. Well, that was 3 things: CPOP course, the booster, the credibility booster, and then the clarity specialist program.
And if somebody wanted to be a part of this, join it, even watch or follow what you're doing, where would they go?
The easiest, go to my website, mitchelllevy.com, because I talk about all of those elements there. And you could book time directly on the calendar, or you can end up joining. I've got newsletters. One of the easiest is on Substack, but all of that is referenced. I think I mentioned to you, one of the newsletters on Substack, you can get it for free. And if you end up paying $10 a month, you end up also you get to negate the $35 a month that it costs for Credibility Nation. So you get free access to Credibility Nation for life. So it's this Mitchell Levy newsletter. And that's my goal there in that newsletter. It's called Staying Relevant with Mitchell Levy. So what I'm curious about is, well, what happens when AI does our job? What happens when robots do our jobs? What happens when you're getting older or you get pushed out of a company and you're doing your own thing? How do you still stay relevant? And so those are the topics I'm addressing in the newsletter. So if that's of interest to you, sign up, whether it's free or $10 a month, sign up for the newsletter. But get your CPOP. And I'm very curious. I love hearing what people's CPOP are and then seeing how they show up in the playground that they actually say they play.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Mitchell, for your time. As we wrap up here, could you let our listeners know how they could get in touch with you if they have more questions on clarity, on credibility, on this tool or Credibility Nation? How do people get in touch with you?
Like I said, the easiest, I'm also a LinkedIn person, so you could go to Mitchell Levy on LinkedIn or mitchelllevy.com. And then there, the menu structure will bring you to whatever question you might have. And the cool part, if you're like, hey, I got to talk to Mitchell, not a problem. In Mitchell Levy, there's direct access to my calendar and just book time on the calendar.
Perfect. And for those of you who are on the road or at the gym, that's mitchelllevy.com, mitchelllevy.com, mitchelllevy.com. Thank you so much, Mitchell. If you are listening at home and you'd like to ask a question or recommend a guest, send me an email to podcast@mgscc.net. And remember, if you liked the tool and you're interested to know more about it, you can get it for free at mgscc.net/coach-toolbox, mgscc.net/coach-toolbox. And we'll have all of the links, including Mitchell's social and contact information, in the description below. If you are a certified stakeholder center coach, you already have all of these tools inside of your SCC portal that you can go and grab anytime. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. My guest, Mitchell Levy, thank you for joining us for this episode of Conversations with Coaches and for sharing this tool, showing up consistently with clarity. This has been another episode of our series Conversations with Coaches by Stakeholder Centered Coaching, where we believe everyone deserves a stakeholder-centered leader. Thank you for joining the conversation. And until next time, keep learning, keep improving, and keep taking your coaching skills to the next level.